Hello and welcome to Putt Putt Productions, and today I pulled something from the archives I thought people might be interested in. It's the first published story I got paid for. It's called My Favorite Things, and this anthology is Sultry Shades of Christmas. I got paid a whopping $10 for this, and it's edited by Nancy Jackson. So if you're interested, pick it up through Amazon.com. Sultry Shades of Christmas, Nancy Jackson. And the short story I had in this anthology is called My Favorite Things. So maybe in the middle of this August heat, a Christmas story might help a little bit. Oh, this is just the beginning of, these are adult Christmas romances, so I'm not going to be reading the adult part though. Anyway, thank you, happy holidays, Belinda called out as a customer left. Sighing dejectedly, she went back to straightening the store. An hour to go before closing, the week of Christmas, and her gift shop was, to quote one of her much-loved authors, dead as a coffin nail. Yet, as Dean Martin segued into Nat King Cole over the story's stereo system, she couldn't help but sing along and cheer up a little. She'd always tried to look on the bright side of things, and Christmas had always been her favorite season with its festive colors, cheery music, and message of hope. Ever since she had inherited this store, however, it had been more and more difficult to remain positive about her life. She thought back over the last 6 months. Saying they'd been chaotic was putting it mildly. With the death of her beloved Auntie Sis came the inheritance of the store with the apartment above it, rising to the challenge of learning to run a business, and the breakup of a relationship that had been rocky to begin with. Everything had gone downhill from there. The gift shop lost more money than it made and catered to no one that Belinda could figure out. Changing the arrangement of merchandise or selling different products did nothing to increase business, and instead brought lectures from Auntie Sis's old friends about the way we do things here. Add to that Belinda's bewilderment at small-town politics, as well as her battered self-esteem, and moving here from San Francisco ended up becoming her teenage nightmare all over again. She made a face at these thoughts, brought her before the counter and the mound of bills there that needed attention. Sighing again, she bent down over the pile to see what could be done about them before closing. Feeling a soft caress around the hem of her long wool skirt, Belinda bent down to scratch the ears of the male tuxedo cat at her feet. "I know, Mr. Whiskers. Almost time to close, and then you'll get your dinner." Mr. Whiskers had been with Auntie Sis until the end, and he had become Belinda's friend as well. She gave the purring cat one more chin rub and was coming back up, pushing her long black hair behind her ears when the front door bell clanged, signaling someone's entrance. Belinda quickly schooled her face to be welcoming. She couldn't afford to turn anyone away, no matter what it was, no matter that it was this near to closing time. At her feet, she could feel Mr. Whiskers tense. Not a good sign. Yeah, perfect location, JP. Sleepy little town. We could probably get what we needed here for a song and still double the local economy for years to come. What? Hey, can I call you back? It's cold as hell outside, and I'm getting bad reception where I am inside. Yeah, later. The man who had just sauntered in closed his phone and turned to Belinda. His dull gray eyes raked over her, dismissing her full-figured form at a glance. She felt filthy on top of the standard disappointment she felt at being weighed, measured, and found wanting in a mere look. He sniffed imperiously and brushed his hand through his thinning, sandy red hair. "Coffee mocha latte," he ordered, reaching for his wallet. "But," protested Belinda, taken aback at this confusing order, when his phone rang and he turned to answer it, snapping his fingers at her. Perplexed, Belinda shrugged and silently went back to putting her paperwork in order. She would try to go over it tonight one more time to see what she could do about sales. She was just losing herself in another rendition of Silent Night when a hand smacked down on the counter. "Hey, what do I gotta do to get a latte around here?" The man stared at her angrily. "Man, if this were LA, coffee would have been in my hand and I'd been at the door by now, not waiting on some lazy fat broad who's reading behind the counter and singing God knows what." Belinda peered up at him out of her clear blue eyes and tried to calm herself, counting to 10 as Auntie Sis had taught her. Suppressed rage was about the best she could do under the circumstances. Mr. Whiskers seemed to echo her rage in his own hiss. "Well," Belinda put her hands down on the counter, "I suppose if one were going to obtain a coffee beverage, one would typically go to a place of business that sold coffee beverages, which this is not. During regular business hours, again, which this is not." Belinda glared back, barely hearing the front door clang again as she began to see red. "What's a copper kettle doing on your store sign then, huh?" why was the door open? And I don't think that cat is exactly code. Where I come from, the customer's always right, and you have no right to treat me that way. Don't you read? The name of the store is my favorite things, such as bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens. So, he shrugged when Melinda pushed herself up, revealing her full 6-foot height. She was glad she'd worn boots. Is everyone from LA so stupid, or just you? Do you enter into every business transaction like a narcissistic idiot? Get out of my store. But the sandy-haired man wasn't used to being rebuked by the counter help he usually affronted. Out now, Belinda belted. Think again before insulting someone who happens to be the store owner. Just then, invading her narrowed vision, curly brown hair and sparkling black eyes and a fair face smiled up at her. Forgive us, ma'am. Jer here doesn't get out of LA much and has a cultural education of an at. The curly-haired one turned and said this pointedly to Jerry. Come on, Jer. Leave the nice lady business owner alone, he said as he grabbed Jerry's elbow. Then digging in his pocket, he produced a card. Here, the name's Pete. Peter Davids. I used to know Sis back when I vacationed here a lot. We're with a film production company looking for locations. I thought this place would be ideal for what we need. You could give me a call if you're interested, or anything, he faltered at the end, looking her full in the face. She was hit with the frank honesty in his face, and she could read with a jolt that, frankly, he really liked her. Yet she couldn't seem to let go of her seething anger quite so quickly. She could see Jer smirking at their exchange, and it irked her. You mammed me, she accused quietly, and then felt betrayed as she watched Mr. Whiskers rub himself against Peter's ankles. Well, I wasn't sure how to politely refer to you, Pete tilted his head inquiringly at her. His eyes twinkled back at her lips in a half-smile. Belinda, Sis's niece. Belinda could feel herself blush and reached out to shake hands to hide her confusion. Belinda. Ah, shining a beautiful one, right? Do you have a card? Peter inquired as he reached down to scratch Mr. Whiskers. Belinda, still in utter confusion as to how this had come about, watched as her hand reached over to write her name and home number on one of the gift shop cards and give it to him with a shaking hand. She had to salvage this somehow. She didn't want to be a complete idiot. I don't get that much business since Annie Sis passed, Belinda ventured as she felt his fingertips brush hers. I was sorry to hear she had passed. Peter paused briefly, holding under her fingertips. But might you be interested in renting this place out to us for a little while? Would you consider talking out the details over dinner or drinks? Peter asked. And that's all I'll read for you for now. If you want to read more, then you can get it on Amazon.com. Sultry Shades of Christmas. And Happy Christmas in the summer. Happy Christmas in August.